Growing up, my daddy had a system. The system was one for all and all for one. Meaning if one person got something, everybody else got it too. If one person got desserts, everybody got desserts, right? If one person got a butt whooping, everybody got a butt whooping, right? Until it got to a point to where it became very clear that certain people, right? You always have that one or those one or two bad apples in the bunch. And so it got to a point to where my dad started to realize that 9 out of 12 of us were doing what we were supposed to be doing, right? Or it'd be the other way around. 3 of us would be doing what we're supposed to be doing, and the other ones just didn't give a care, right? So it got to a point to where my dad started paying attention to the individual people who were doing what they were supposed to be doing. And it started to become very clear after a while who those people were that was always in line and the other people who just weren't being obedient. And this is how obedience works. My dad finally realized, he started to recognize the people who were being obedient and those who weren't. So the people who were being obedient stopped being punished for the things that the ones who were being disobedient were doing. This is how obedience works in the real world. This is exactly how obedience works. Whatever it is that you're putting out, whatever it is that you're dishing out, right? So if you had a person who, like myself, I would keep my room clean, I kept my chores done, and I kept good grades, right? Those were the things that were to surely leave you out of the way of being punished for whatever. And then I had another brother who was often the exact opposite. His room was always dirty. He always had bad grades, and his chores oftentimes weren't getting done around the house. So it got to a point to where almost always that brother would always be punished, and I would almost always be excluded out of certain punishments because I did what I was supposed to be doing. That is how obedience works, my beauties. When when you're putting out what you're supposed to be putting out, when you're, according to the reference I'm using, when you're keeping your room clean, when you're keeping your chores around the house done, when you're keeping your grades up, excuse the kids screaming in the background, but when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in life, right? So when you are being obedient to what you're being called to do, who you're being called to be, then the things that you need and desire are going to come to you, right? But when you're not being obedient, then you're going to ultimately be punished, right? It's reaping and sowing, right? Whatever you sow is what you shall reap. So by reference of how I grew up, I sowed, you know what I'm saying, well mannered behavior, right? And so as a result, I reaped the benefits of that, right? And so I don't know who this message is for, but this is reaping season. What have you been sowing? What have you been sowing, my beauties? That's the message. Peace and love, all.